Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales and boundless imagination come to life. Enjoy the story and don't forget to subscribe.
Henry Westbrook stared out of the viewport of his transport pod as it docked with a metallic thunk against the hull of the Galactic Eternity Academy. Suspended in orbit around a brilliant F-class star, the sprawling complex gleamed like a jewel in the void. Massive training vessels drifted nearby like predatory fish circling their prey. Henry swallowed hard. He didn't belong here, not really. Humans were considered primitive by galactic standards. Yet somehow, he'd received an acceptance hologram 3 weeks ago. His father's words echoed in his mind as he stepped into the reception chamber. Westbrook's don't back down from a challenge. The cavernous arrival hall teemed with alien lifeforms. Towering reptilian creatures lumbered past willowy beings who seemed to float rather than walk. Crystalline entities refracted light into dazzling patterns across polished floors. Not a single human was in sight. A holographic instructor materialized before him. Species identification, human. Name, Henry Westbrook. Its tone conveyed disapproval. Proceed to orientation chamber B7. Thanks, he muttered. Gratitude is unnecessary, it replied before vanishing. Henry shuffled toward the indicated hallway but collided with a hulking alien whose 4 eyes narrowed with disgust. Watch yourself, human, it growled. Sorry, he stammered. The alien didn't bother responding before joining others who glared at him with disdain. When he reached B7, a hexagonal chamber filled with new cadets, the chatter died instantly. All eyes turned toward him. A human, someone whispered. Must be lost, another voice replied. Henry squared his shoulders and found an open spot at the back. He expected this reaction. Humans were seen as stubborn but unimpressive, a backwater species without telepathy or enhanced abilities. His father had faced similar prejudice as one of Earth's first interstellar cargo pilots. At that moment, he spotted her, a stunning figure standing at the front of the formation. Her deep purple skin shimmered like polished amethyst under the artificial lighting. Silver hair cascaded down her back, framing brilliant green eyes flecked with gold that seemed to glow from within. She moved with unconscious grace that made everyone else look clumsy by comparison. Who is she? He asked a nearby cadet, a blue-skinned humanoid with 4 arms. That's Lena Vale, they snorted. Velta royalty. Top of her class on her homeworld, and completely out of your league. I wasn't. Save it. The cadet smirked. Everyone stares, no one touches. Before he could respond, Admiral Zarvis entered, a towering figure whose exoskeletal face betrayed no emotion. He outlined their schedule for the day. Flight simulator assessment in Hangar E. Combat readiness test in Arena 12. Telepathic aptitude evaluation in Chamber 3. Each announcement triggered excitement among cadets while dread settled over Henry, especially at telepathic aptitude, which was biologically impossible for humans. As they filed toward Hangar E, he found himself walking behind Lena Vale. She half-turned when she sensed him behind her, those unnerving green-gold eyes flicked over him dismissively before looking forward again. Inside Hangar E were teardrop-shaped pods resembling fighter cockpits equipped with neural interfaces that responded directly to thought commands, a technology far beyond anything Earth had developed. Henry climbed into one tentatively and immediately crashed into a virtual asteroid within seconds. Cadet Westbrook, boomed an instructor's voice through his pod interface, what exactly are you doing? I'm learning, he offered weakly while laughter erupted from other pods. By his 4th crash attempt, he was ordered out to observe instead, red-faced and humiliated, as others executed complex maneuvers effortlessly. Lena Vale was particularly dazzling. Her simulated fighter danced through obstacles like water flowing around stones. When she emerged last from her pod after flawless performance, she glanced at him briefly before walking away without comment, her silver hair swaying hypnotically behind her. The combat readiness test proved even worse. Drones swept him off elevated platforms within seconds while spectators laughed openly at his failure. And telepathic aptitude? A complete disaster. The instructor couldn't even establish basic mental links due to human physiology limitations. By day's end, Henry dragged himself into his dormitory feeling utterly defeated but determined not to quit, not yet anyway. As he stared at his father's image on his personal device for comfort, the door chimed unexpectedly. Standing outside was Lena Vale herself. "You adjusted thruster sequences mid-maneuver during your last flight attempt," she said abruptly when he opened it. Henry blinked in confusion before replying hesitantly, "Yeah. I was just trying something different." "That sequence isn't standard procedure," she continued coldly yet intrigued. "Where did you learn it?" "I didn't, I just tried what felt right." Her gaze lingered longer than necessary before she stepped back toward the hallway doorframe almost thoughtfully, or perhaps calculatingly, and left him alone pondering what tomorrow might bring. The Academy's combat arena for the assessment was massive, a domed chamber with a central platform suspended over the familiar blue gel. Unlike yesterday's training session, hundreds of spectators filled the surrounding stands. Senior cadets, instructors, and even some uniformed officers had come to watch the first-year performance. "Quite a crowd," Henry muttered to KZ as they lined up with the other cadets. "Tradition," KZ replied. "Everyone loves watching freshly recruited hotshots get humbled by the simulation." Admiral Zarvis's voice boomed through the arena speakers. "Cadets, today you will face the advanced combat simulation. The simulation will adapt to your strategies, increasing in difficulty the longer you survive. Your performance will be ranked and recorded. Good luck, you'll need it." Henry felt a surge of nervous energy. He glanced toward the VIP section where Lena Vale sat among other Velta elites. Her expression remained unreadable. The first cadet stepped onto the platform, a towering Drather who lasted barely a minute before succumbing to the relentless onslaught of energy blasts. Others followed, each meeting similar fates until only a handful remained, including Lena and Henry. "Westbrook, Henry," the announcer called. He swallowed hard and walked onto the platform, trying to ignore the weight of hundreds of staring eyes. The platform shimmered as the simulation initiated. "Choose your combat pod," Zarvis's voice echoed. Remembering Lena's cryptic advice, Henry walked towards Pod 17, an old, battered model tucked away in the corner. He climbed inside, ignoring the sputtering console. "Cadet Westbrook, are you sure about this election?" the AI questioned. "Pod 17 has a history of malfunctions." "Yeah, I'm sure," Henry replied, gripping the controls. As soon as the simulation began, the pod lurched violently. Alarms blared, and the targeting system flickered erratically. Most cadets would panic, but Henry saw an opportunity. The drones swarmed, firing energy bursts that would have been impossible to dodge in a stable pod. But thanks to the glitches, Henry's pod responded unpredictably to his commands, jerking sideways, spinning wildly, and making him a difficult target to hit. He managed to fire back, taking down a drone with a lucky shot. Emboldened, he began to exploit the pod's erratic movements, turning its weaknesses into strengths. He felt like he was barely in control, yet he lasted longer than anyone expected. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Henry survived wave after wave of drones. Even Admiral Zarvis seemed surprised. Lena Vale leaned forward, her expression shifting from indifference to intense curiosity. Eventually, the pod gave out completely, sputtering and shutting down mid-maneuver. Henry was thrown against the console, but he'd lasted over 5 minutes, a respectable time, especially considering his supposed lack of abilities. As he climbed out of the pod, he could hear the buzz of excited chatter. Cadets were pointing and whispering, and a few even offered hesitant nods of respect. "Not bad, human," KZ said, slapping him on the back. "You almost made me win my bet." "Thanks," Henry replied, still catching his breath. Lena Vale approached him as he walked back to the waiting area. Pod 17, she asked, her voice low. You knew it would do that, didn't you? Henry replied. I knew it had unique characteristics, she admitted. But I didn't expect you to survive that long. Why did you tell me about it? I wanted to see what would happen, she said, her eyes searching his. I'm still not sure what to make of it. Before Henry could respond, the next cadet was called to the platform, Lena herself. She moved with lethal grace, her purple skin shimmering under the arena lights. Her performance was breathtaking. She manipulated her pod with effortless precision, weaving through energy blasts and destroying drones with calculated efficiency. It was clear she was in a different league altogether. As the assessment continued, Henry found himself bonding with the other outsider cadets, KZ, Plex, and Sarto. They shared stories of their homeworlds, their struggles to fit in, and their determination to prove themselves. The Velta think they're superior, but they're not invincible, Plex said, his jellyfish-like body pulsing with indignation. They've had centuries to perfect their skills, Sarto added, but we have strengths they don't understand. Humans, for example, are incredibly adaptable. Henry felt a surge of pride. Maybe they did have a chance, after all. Later that evening, the Academy posted the combat assessment rankings. Lena Vale was at the top, as expected. But surprisingly, Henry Westbrook was in the top half, a significant achievement for a human with no formal training. When Henry checked his messages, he found one from an unknown sender. Meet me at the training grounds. Midnight. The message was unsigned, but Henry had a feeling he knew who it was from. He arrived at the deserted training grounds under the pale glow of the artificial moons. Lena Vale was waiting for him, her silver hair cascading down her back. Why did you ask me to meet you here? Henry asked. I want to train you, she replied. Henry stared at her in disbelief. Train me? Why? Because I see potential in you, she said. And because I believe you can help me. Help you with what? Lena hesitated, her expression troubled. There are things happening within the Velta Empire that you wouldn't understand, she said. Things that need to change. And I think you might be the key. Henry frowned. I don't understand. You will, she said. If you're willing to trust me. Henry looked at Lena, her purple skin glowing softly in the moonlight. He didn't know what she was planning, but he knew he couldn't refuse her offer. Okay, he said. I trust you. Lena nodded, a flicker of relief in her eyes. Good, she said. Then let's begin. The first lesson was brutal. Lena pushed Henry to his physical and mental limits, forcing him to adapt to combat techniques that were alien to human physiology. She taught him how to anticipate his opponent's moves, how to use his environment to his advantage, and how to exploit weaknesses in their defenses. Humans may not have telepathy or enhanced strength, she said, but they have something else, resourcefulness. You're quick-witted and adaptable. That's your greatest strength. Henry struggled, but he refused to give up. He was determined to prove himself worthy of Lena's trust. As the weeks passed, Henry's skills improved dramatically. He learned to move with surprising agility, to anticipate his opponent's attacks, and to strike with deadly precision. He also learned more about Lena, her ambitions, and her fears. The Velta have become arrogant and complacent, she told him one night. They believe they're invincible. But they're wrong. And I'm going to prove it. Henry realized that Lena was using him as a pawn in her own game, but he didn't care. He was learning valuable skills, making powerful allies, and challenging the prejudices that had held humanity back for so long. He was no longer just a human out of his depth, he was becoming something more. One day, Admiral Zarvis announced that the Academy would be participating in a multi-species training exercise. Cadets would be divided into teams and assigned specific objectives. The exercise would test their combat skills, their strategic thinking, and their ability to work together. Henry knew this was his chance to prove himself, not just to Lena, but to the entire galaxy. Chaos erupted throughout the academy. Sirens wailed, red lights pulsed, and cadets scrambled to reach their designated battle stations. Henry and Lena joined the throng, pushing through the crowded corridors. "What's going on?" Henry shouted over the din. "I don't know," Lena replied, her voice tight with concern. "But this isn't a drill." They reached the armory, a vast chamber filled with an array of weaponry and protective gear. Cadets rushed to equip themselves, grabbing laser rifles, energy shields, and tactical vests. "We need to find out what we're up against," Lena said, grabbing a pair of high-powered energy pistols. "And protect the academy." They joined a squad of cadets heading towards the main defense perimeter. As they ran, they passed shattered windows and overturned furniture. The academy was under heavy attack. Reaching the perimeter, they found themselves facing a scene of carnage. Enemy ships swarmed overhead, unleashing barrages of energy blasts. Academy fighters scrambled to intercept them, engaging in a chaotic dogfight. On the ground, enemy soldiers poured through breached walls, engaging the cadets in close-quarters combat. The attackers were heavily armored and armed with advanced weaponry. "Who are they?" Henry asked, firing his energy pistol at an approaching soldier. "The KRYLL," Lena replied, her voice grim. "A ruthless mercenary group known for their brutality." The KRYLL were notorious for their raids on undefended colonies, their tactics focused on overwhelming force and indiscriminate destruction. Why they were attacking the academy was unclear. Henry and Lena fought side by side, taking down KRYLL soldiers with precision and skill. Henry found himself relying on the instincts and combat techniques Lena had taught him. He moved with a newfound confidence, anticipating his opponent's moves and striking with deadly accuracy. Despite their efforts, the KRYLL continued to advance. They were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. "We can't hold them here," Lena said, surveying the battlefield. "We need to fall back and regroup." They retreated to a fortified command center, where Admiral Zarvis was coordinating the defense. The room was a hive of activity, with officers barking orders and holographic displays showing the unfolding battle. "Admiral," Lena said, approaching Zarvis. "We need a strategy. The KRYLL are overwhelming our defenses." Zarvis turned to her, his exoskeletal face grim. "Our primary objective is to protect the academy and its cadets. We must hold our ground until reinforcements arrive." "But Admiral," Lena protested, "we're losing ground. We need to take the fight to them." Zarvis shook his head. "Our orders are clear. We cannot risk exposing the academy further." Lena clenched her fists, frustration evident in her eyes. She knew that Zarvis's cautious approach would only lead to defeat. Henry watched her, sensing her inner turmoil. He knew that she wanted to take action, to fight back against the KRYLL. But she was bound by protocol and orders. "Admiral," Henry said, stepping forward. "With all due respect, I think Lena's right. We can't just sit here and wait to be overrun. We need to do something." Zarvis turned his gaze on Henry, his expression cold. "You are a cadet, Westbrook. You will follow orders." "But Admiral." "That is enough," Zarvis snapped. "Return to your assigned positions." Henry and Lena exchanged a frustrated look. They knew they couldn't stand by and do nothing. "I have a plan," Lena whispered to Henry as they left the command center. "But it's risky." "I'm listening," Henry replied. "There's a hidden weapons depot beneath the academy," Lena explained. "It contains advanced weaponry that could turn the tide of the battle. But it's heavily guarded, and the access codes are classified. So how do we get there?" "I know a way," Lena said. But it requires bypassing several security systems and navigating a maze of underground tunnels. Sounds like fun, Henry said with a grin. They gathered KZ, Plex, and Sarto, explaining their plan. The outsider cadets were eager to help. The Velta think they can solve everything with their technology, Plex said. But they forget the value of ingenuity. We're in, KZ said, clicking his mandibles. Let's show those KRYLL what we're made of. The group snuck away from the main defense perimeter and headed towards a concealed entrance to the underground tunnels. Lena used her knowledge of Velta technology to bypass the security systems, opening a hidden passage. They descended into the darkness, armed with energy pistols and tactical vests. The tunnels were narrow and winding, filled with pipes, cables, and forgotten equipment. As they navigated the tunnels, they encountered KRYLL patrols. The group engaged them in close-quarters combat, using their combined skills to overcome the enemy soldiers. Henry was impressed by the resourcefulness of his friends. KZ used his reptilian strength to overpower the KRYLL, while Plex used his quantum physics knowledge to create diversions and disrupt their communication systems. Sarto, with his biochim expertise, set up traps and barriers that slowed down the enemy advance. Finally, they reached the weapons depot, a massive chamber filled with advanced weaponry, including plasma cannons, energy shields, and experimental combat suits. Jackpot, Henry said, his eyes wide with excitement. They quickly equipped themselves with the advanced weaponry, feeling a surge of power. With the new equipment, they could turn the tide of the battle. But as they prepared to leave the depot, they were confronted by Admiral Zarvis and a squad of Velta soldiers. What is the meaning of this? Zarvis demanded, his voice filled with anger. You have disobeyed orders and compromised Academy security. We're trying to save the Academy, Lena replied, her voice defiant. You're too afraid to take action. You are relieved of duty, Lena Vale, Zarvis said. You will be confined to your quarters pending a full investigation. You can't do that, Henry protested. We need her. She's the only one who knows how to use this weaponry. Silence, Westbrook, Zarvis snapped. You are under arrest for insubordination. Zarvis ordered his soldiers to disarm the cadets. But Lena refused to surrender. I won't let you sacrifice the Academy, she said, activating her energy pistols. I'm doing what's right. A firefight erupted in the weapons depot. Lena and her friends fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Henry watched in horror as Lena was struck by an energy blast, collapsing to the ground. Lena, he shouted, rushing to her side.